Welcome everyone. Today we'll see the part 16 of Certificate in Cybersecurity exam question and answers. So here the question is, which of the following physical control is used to protect against eavesdropping and data theft through electromagnetic radiation? So EMI shield, screen roaming, white noise generator and all. So here the correct answer is A is the correct answer. EMI shielding is used to protect against eavesdropping of data theft. So here the question is, what is the benefit of subnet? Okay, so what is subnet? Subnet is the process of segregating the large physical network into logical smaller networks. Okay, so whether that benefit by increasing the network bandwidth? No, it won't increase the network bandwidth at all. That is not the correct answer. By improving network security, it won't provide any network security. So that also not correct. By reducing network congestion, this might be the correct answer, because since we have reduced larger network into smaller logical network, now the communication only happens within the subnet until that packet is intended for other subnet. So the thing, so by that it reduces the network congestion. So option C is the correct one. Option D, by simplifying network management, it won't simplify the network management. In fact, it complicates the network management. So the option C is the correct one. So here the question is, which type of control is used to restore systems or processes to their normal state after an attack has occurred? Okay, here the keyword is restore. Okay, which control is used to restore the system? Compensationary control, that is not the correct one. Recovery control is not the correct one. And directory control is not the correct one, because directory control is to prevent, is to detect the threads or the events. So directory control is not the correct one. Correctory control, yeah, correctory control is the correct one, because correctory control or is to restore the system or the processes to the original state after the attack. So the option D is the correct one. So here the difference between corrective control and recovery control. So corrective control safeguards data in case of mismatch, whereas the recovery control helps you get data back if it is lost. So that's the difference between corrective control and recovery control. So as per the statement, corrective control is the correct answer. So here the question is, what is the difference between hub and switch? Okay, we'll see the options. A hub is less likely to be used in home network. That is not correct. Hub can create separate broadcast domain when used to create VLAN. So that is not correct, because switch is used to create a separate broadcast domain. And here option C is a hub retransmit traffic to all devices, while a switch route traffic to specific devices. And this is the correct answer. So option C is the correct. Option D is not correct. So here the question is, which device is used to control traffic flow in network? Here the keyword is in network. It's not across the network. So here options are SDN, software defined network, switch, hub and router. Since a question says in the network, it's a switch is the correct answer. Why hub is not the correct answer? Hub won't control traffic. It just broadcasts all the packets to all the devices. So switch only controls traffic flow in network. So option B is correct. A router is not the correct answer, because this is within the network. If the question says across the network, then router is the correct answer. So here option is B, switch. So here the question is the analysis of an information systems requirement functions and interdependencies used to characterize system contingency requirements and priorities in the event of significant disruption. Here the keyword is system contingency requirement. That is also called system continuity requirement. So here the options are the BIA, DR and BCP and IRP. Since that question states business contingency requirement, so option A is the correct answer, business impact analysis. Here the question is, US organization is concerned about network security and what to prevent unauthorized access to its resources by implementing a security model where the network has not trusted space, and the type of security model is. Here the keyword is not trusted space. So the answer is zero trust. Trusted computing, trusted platform modules and trusted execution module are irrelevant. So the answer is option A. So here the question is, port scanning attack target which OSI layer? Okay, so here the port scanning. So port scanning usually involved in the protocol, the TCP or UDP protocols, which uses the ports. So TCP and UDP are layer 4 protocols. So the answer is option A. So here the question is restoring IT and communications back to full operations after a disruption. So what do you call this? So here the keyword is back to full operation. So the answer option BCP, IRP and DRP. So the answer is correct answer is DRP, disaster recovery plan. So that is used to restore the IT and communication systems back to the full operation. So here the question is what are registered ports used for? Okay, the common protocol at the core of TCP model used for web servers, used for in-house or open source application, proprietary applications from vendors and developers. So registered ports are used for proprietary applications and vendor and developers. So option D is the correct one. So here the question is which of the following uses registered port? So HTTP, SMB, TCP and MS SQL server. So here since the question stated registered port, so the first option 1, option 2 and option 3 are well-known ports. So the correct answer is D, MS SQL. Here the question is a cyber crime in which the attacker floods the server with internet traffic to prevent users from accessing connected online services and sites. So here the keyword is flood the servers. So phishing, virus and spoofing are not related to flooding the server. So the answer is D, distributor denial of service. So here the question is a set of instructions to help IT staffs to detect, respond to, recover from network security incidents. Here the keyword is security incident. So to recover from the security incidents, we use incidents response plan. So that is primarily used to detect and respond to the security incidents. So BCP and DRP comes later. If IRP can't able to resolve the security incidents, it might impact the business operation. Then BCP will be deployed. So BCP is to business continuity plan is to continue the business mission critical business operations. If the BCP also fails to sustain the business, then DRP come into the picture to get to roll back the system or to set up recover the system from backup or setting up the alternate business environment. So the option is B is the correct one. So here the question is what is the potential impact of IPsec reply attack? Okay, what is reply attack? So in the reply attack, the intruder captures the network packets and he tries to retransmit the packet by modifying the packet information. So that is a replay attack. What would be the impact of that modification of network traffic? That might be the correct one. Disruption of network communication and unauthorized access to network resources. So the potential impact is a modification of network traffic. That's a correct answer. So here the question is which type of malware encrypts a user's file system and demands payment in exchange of decrypting key. So here the keyword is encryption and decryption. So ransomware is involved in this kind of attack. So option D is the correct one. Here the question is when is the business continuity plan enacted? Okay, the options are when there is an event, no. At the event we won't do BCP. When there is an incident, no. When there is a loss of business operations, this is the correct answer. When there is a natural disaster, that time also we won't do the BCP. We enact BCP when there is a loss of business operation or a disruption in the business operation. So option C is the correct one. Here the question is the method of distributing network traffic equally across a pool of resources that supports an application. So here the keyword is distribution of network traffic. VLAN, DNS and VPN that is not at all related to the question. Load balancing is the correct answer. Here the question is the practice of sending fraudulent communication that appears to come from a reputed source. DOS, virus, spoofing and phishing. So here the keyword is fraudulent communication. Then that is coming from a reputed source. So the answer is D, phishing. Here the question is what is not the function of IPS? Here the keyword is not the function. So okay, to encrypt network traffic. So that IPS won't do the encryption. So that might be the correct answer. Then to monitor network traffic, yeah, IPS will monitor network traffic. To filter network traffic, yes, IPS will filter the network traffic to detect and prevent attacks. That also correct. So option A is the correct one. So it won't, IPS won't encrypt network traffic. So here the question is, an hacker gains access to a company network and begins to intercept network traffic in order to steal login credentials. Which OSI layer is being attacked? So since it is stealing login credentials, it might be the higher layer of the OSI model. So the answer is D is a correct answer, application layer. Here the question is, DAS is a weighted factor based on subjective analysis of the probability that a given thread or set of threads is capable of exploiting a given vulnerability or set of vulnerabilities. So what is that mean? Likelihood of occurrence, threat vector, risk or impact. Here the keyword is the probability and the weighted factor. So it's clearly defined, a likelihood of occurrence of risk. So the answer is A. Here the question is, which is related to standard? NIST, GDPR and HIPAA and all. So here NIST is the standard, GDPR and HIPAA are regulations. So the answer is A. So here the question is, risk tolerance, also known as risk threshold, risk appetite, acceptable risk. So as per cybersecurity, risk tolerance is also known as all the three. So the answer is A. Here the question is, set of rules that everyone must comply with and usually carry monetary penalties for non-compliance. So here the keyword is monetary penalties. So only law and regulations is involved in monetary penalties. So the answer is D. So here the question is, a structured approach used to oversee and manage risk for an enterprise. So here the keyword is structured approach, risk assessment, risk threshold, risk management framework and risk appetite. The correct answer is risk management framework, because the keyword they mentioned structured approach used. So answer is C. So here the question is, which regulation addresses personal privacy? So here the keyword is regulation. So here NIST and ISO are standards. So we can eliminate them. So we need to either select from A or B, HIPAA or GDPR. HIPAA is used to protect private and sensitive patient data. It's not about personal privacy. So the answer is B, GDPR. So here the question is, a scammer will attempt to make a malicious website look exactly like a legitimate one that the victim knows and trusts. So here the keyword is malicious website. So here the options are DOS. DOS are not related. Virus also not related. Spoofing is a correct answer. So here the question is, while taking the certification exam for ISC square CC, you notice another candidate for the certification cheating. What should you do? So options are L at the other candidate for violating the testing security. That is not the correct one. Nothing. Each person is responsible for their own action. This is also not the correct one. Report the candidate to ISC square. Call local government enforcement. So calling to the local government enforcement is irrelevant. Report the candidate to the ISC square, because the certification exam is conducted by ISC square. So answer is C. So here the question is, how does IPsec protect against replay attacks? So what is replay attack? So in a replay attack, the man in the middle eavesdrops the communication and alters the packet and resend the packet to the client. This is to disrupt the communication, or if you want, he want to alter the execution flow in the client side. So how to protect this? By using sequence numbers, by limiting access to the network, by using digital signatures, by encrypting all network traffic. So the first option is the correct one, because if the server user sends a sequence number as part of the each packet, the client can make note of the sequence number. In the meantime, if that man in the middle try to retransmit the same packet with the same sequence number, the client can able to detect this. The sequence number is altered, so it can ignore the packet. Through that, the replay attack can be mitigated. So the answer is A is a correct one. So here the question is, what is IPsec replay attack? So here the options are an attack where an attacker modifies packets in transit. That might be correct answer. An attack where an attacker eavesdrops on network traffic. That also correct. An attack where an attacker overloads a network with traffic. That also correct. Might be correct. And option D, an attack where an attacker attempts to inject packets in an existing session. So this is the exact answer because it is stating in existing session. That's a key point here. So the replay attack can be succeeded if it able to get the session without injecting or modifying the packet, eavesdropping, and overload the network traffic. This all it's not a correct one. So here the option D is a correct one because it's stated in existing section. So without the attacker can't able to get into the session, he can't able to modify the packet or he can't able to eavesdrops. So the option D is a correct one. Here the question is, a chief information security officer at a large organization documented a policy that establishes a acceptable use of cloud environment for all staffs. This is an example of technical control, physical control, cloud control, or management administrative control. So here the statement is the documented a policy. So it will clearly it's a management or administrative control. The option D is the correct one. So here the question is, the primary functionality of PAM is. What is PAM? PAM is privilege access management. Okay, the options are validate the level of access a user have to file, prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets, provide just-in-time access to critical resources, manage centralized access control. So the primary functionality of PAM is provide just-in-time access to critical resources. Option C is a correct one. So how PAM achieve this? In the PAM, the administrator can able to enable the user's permission as a administrator permission for 1 day, so that the user can get that administrative permission to do the critical operations in only 1 day only. After the time period, the access permission is revoked. Automatically, it will be revoked. So through this, the elevated permission misuse is mitigated. So option C is the correct one. So here the question is, DDoS attack affects which OSI layer? Either network layer, transport layer, or physical layer. So usually the dot attack targets network layer and transport layer. There are various types of DOS attack. So most of the DOS attack targeted network layer and transport layer. Option D is the correct one. So here the question is, DOS often offered by third-party organizations and cover specific advisory or compliance objective. Here the keyword is advisory or compliance objective. So the answer is standard. Here the question is, which type of fire suspension system is more friendly to electronics? Here the keyword is friendly to electronics. Chemical based, water based, and foam based are not friendly to electronics. So the option A is the correct one. So here the question is, mitigation of violation of security policies and recommended practices. So DR, IR, threat hunting, or incident response. So what is a violation of security policies? The violation of security policies leads to incident, security incident. So the option D is the correct one. So here the question is, which layer of OSI layer model is the target of buffer overflow attack? So what is buffer overflow attack? In buffer overflow attack, the attacker tries to send a large amount of data so that the server can't able to process it. So it can be either in user input field or it can be in a data field. So usually the buffer overflow attack target higher layer of OSI model, that is layer 7. So here the question is, a security practitioner who needs step-by-step instructions to complete a provisioning task. So here the keyword is step-by-step instructions. So clearly that is procedure. Option C is the correct one. Here the question is, a company needs to protect its confidential data from unauthorized access. Which logical control is best suited for this scenario? So here the keyword is confidential data, to protect the confidential data. So encryption, firewall, antivirus, and hashing. So out of 4, encryption is the correct answer because through encryption we can able to um, we can encrypt the sensitive data, and then we can give you the key to the authorized person. So only the authorized person able to decrypt the data. The firewall and antivirus and hashing, it can't able to protect the confidential data. So option A is the correct one. Here the question is, does is the right of an individual to control the distribution of information about themselves? So here the keyword is distribution of information. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability is not about distribution of information. It's not about that with privacy. Privacy is the correct answer. So here the first question is, which is a curated knowledge base and model of cyber adversary behavior, reflecting the various phases of adversary attacks, life cycle, and the platform they are known to target. So here the options are meteor attacks, CVE, risk management framework, and security management. So the correct answer is option A, meteor framework. So a meteor framework is a knowledge base that helps model cyber adversaries, tactics, and techniques, and then shows how to detect and stop them. It's a kind of a knowledge base, so which contains all the known cyber attacks and how to mitigate them, and what are the security procedures we need to follow. So everything is documented. This is the open source one. Here the second question is the process of running a simulated instances of a computer system in a layered abstracted from the underlying hardware server or workstation. So which are those containerization, simulation, emulation, or virtualization? So here the keyword is simulated instance in a layered abstraction. So which one abstract the physical layer to the processing layer? So the answer is virtualization. So virtualization is the fundamental technology powering cloud computing. So without virtualization, the cloud computing it's not at all possible. So virtualization is very much important. So here the question is, which uses encrypted machine generated codes to verify a user's identity? So here the options are basic authentication, form based authentication, and token based authentication. So here the keyword is instead of user validating the user identity based on username and password, so the computer is going to generate a code. So out of these three, so basic authentication involves sending plain username and password, and in form based authentication also, so it uses a username and password. So in the only the token based authentication, the computer generated tokens code or token is used to validate or verify the user's identity. So the option C is the correct one. So here the question is, in the context of cybersecurity, typical threat actors include the following. So insider, outsider, technology, or all. So as per the context of cybersecurity, so all of the three options are considered as a threat actors. So here the question is, Zen server, LVM, Hyper-V, EXSI, or option A, type 2 hypervisor, type 1, or both or none. So Zen server, LVM, Hyper-V, and EXSI are type 1 hypervisor. So what is the difference between type 1 and type 2? In type 1 hypervisor, so that the hypervisor is placed on top of that bare metal hardware, and all the VMs will be running on the top of that hypervisor. In type 2 hypervisor, the hypervisor will be installed on top of host OS. So it's not directly that the hypervisor is not going to directly talk to the hardware. It's need to talk to the host OS. So that's the difference between type 1 and type 2 hypervisors. So here the question is the harmonization of automated computing tasks, providing a consolidated and reusable workflow. So which of the cloud orchestration, cloud manager, cloud broker, or cloud controller? So here the keyword is reusable workflow. So we have the computing task that we are going to reuse. So which are the options providing that one? So cloud manager, cloud broker, and cloud controller are not at all related. So only the cloud orchestration talks about automated computing task and reusable workflow. So the option A is correct one. And example of this cloud orchestrations are the Microsoft Azure automation, cloud AWS cloud formation, Kubernetes, and Terraform. So here the question is, which authentication helps build relationship between different technology providers, enabling automatic identification and user access. Employees no longer need to enter username and password when visiting a new service provider. So here the keyword is the employee no longer need to enter username and password for a new service provider. So which one supports this? Basic authentication? No, basic authentication needs user need to enter username and password for all the new service providers. Kerberos, Kerberos won't support. It's a ticket-based authentication mechanism where it only supports a single domain or single service provider. It won't support multiple service providers. Token-based authentication is an authentication mechanism where the computer-generated tokens are used to verify the user's identity. So that also not related to multiple service providers. And federated authentication, that's a correct one. The federated authentication supports multiple service provider authentication, and it needs to establish a trust between the service provider and the identity provider. So whoever all the service providers establishes thread, the trust, the user can able to authenticate with the same identified tokens. Here the question is, which layer of OSI the firewall works? Layer 3, layer 4 and layer 7. So firewall works on all the three layers. So the answer is D. So typically the firewall works on layer 3 and layer 4, and the latest application firewall works on layer 7. So all are the correct answers. So here the question is, which is an approach to networking that uses software based controllers or application programming interface to communicate with the underlying hardware infrastructure and direct traffic on network. So here the keyword is software based controllers. So VLAN, SDN, VPN and SAN. So the correct answer is the VLAN is not the answer. That is a virtual LAN. That is not software-based controllers are not involved, and VPN also not that correct answer. So VPN is not used for control the network traffics, and SAN storage as a network is also not related to that software-based controllers. So the correct answer is SDN, software-defined network. So here the question is, which layer does VLAN hopping belong to? So what is VLAN hopping? So VLAN hopping is a method of attacking the network resource of the VLAN by sending packet to a port not usually accessible from an end system. So usually VLAN basically works in which layer of OSI model? It works on the layer 2. So so the VLAN hopping also belongs to the layer 2 of the OSI model. So the answer is D. So here the question is, what does are and measures of an organization's baseline of security performance? Security assessment, security audit, security benchmark, and security management. So the correct answer is security benchmark. So here the question is example of token based authentication. So here the options are Kerberos, Basic, OAuth, and NTLM. So Kerberos is not a token based; it is ticket based authentication. And Basic authentication, it uses username and plain username and password. And NTLM is also not a token based. It sends a hashed password value to the server to validate the user's identity. So OAuth is the correct answer. OAuth is the token based authentication. So here the question is, which is an authorized simulated attack performed on a computer system to evaluate its security? So here the keyword is evaluate its security. So the option A, penetration testing, it's a correct answer. Security testing, this also might be correct answer. And automated testing and regression testing are not related to security. So since a question status authorized simulated attack, so penetration testing is the appropriate answer. So here the question is, what is the first phase in system development life cycle? So the options are requirement analysis, feasibility study, design phase, and development phase. As per the ISC square, the feasibility study is the first phase in SDLC process. So requirement analysis will do later stage. First, we'll see whether that product development is feasible or not feasible. So B is the correct answer. So here the question is, what is the type of system architecture where a single instance can serve multiple distinct user group? So here the options are multi-threading, multi-processing, multi-tenancy, and multi-cloud. So here the keyword is serve multiple distinct user groups. So which and all serves a multiple user groups? Multi-processing. So it's not the correct answer. It's just a processing multiple way. And multi-threading, that also same. It's just creating a thread inside a process to do multiple operations. And multi-tenancy, that's a correct answer. So that in cloud terms, we use a multi-tenancy to support or serve multiple distinct user groups with a single instance. So multi-cloud is not a correct answer. So option C is a correct one. So this is a difference between single tenancy and multi-tenancy. So in single tenancy, so we have a different instance for different customers or users. In multi-tenancy, we have a single instance, processing instance. It serves multiple user groups, and and the underlying database or the store, we can have a different store for each individual groups. So here the question is difference between sniffing and snooping. So here the option A is sniffing is a process of intercepting and collecting network traffic as it passes over digital network. That is correct. Snooping is the act of disguise communication from unknown sources being trustworthy. Okay, that also correct. So option A is the correct one. So here the question is, DAS is a distributed denial of service attack in which an attacker attempts to flood a target server with Internet Control Message Protocol. So options are DOS, sync flood, smirk attack, and phishing attack. DOS is not the correct one. Sync flood is not also not related. Smirk attack is the related one. Phishing attack is not related to ICMP packet. So option C is the correct one. So here the question is, COVID-19 is one of the best perfect example of a situation where a DAS plan is enacted to sustain the business. So here the keyword is there is no impact, there is no incident, there is no disaster. In the sense, any in IT or communication systems are not affected. So the answer C is a correct one. Business continuity plan. So here the question is, port forwarding is also known as port mapping, tunneling, punch through, or all. So what is port forwarding? So port forwarding is a mechanism through which the device or computer in the private network can be accessible from public computers. By default, the private computers are not, the private computer in the sense, the local computers which is connected to the service provider, internet service provider, that is not directly accessible from public devices. So if we enable the port forwarding and let the port to be enabled, through that port, the outside public computer can able to connect to the private computers. And the option D is a correct one. Port forwarding is also known as all of the three. So this is a pictorial representation of port forwarding. So here the port 8001 is enabled for forwarding. So consider a scenario, if you have any one web application if you have deployed in your local machine, and if you want let that outside public internet to access that site, so in that case you can let that internet service provider to know, so enable the port 800 for forwarding. And then if that after the port forwarding was enabled, the outside the public computers can able to access the website using 8001 port. So that's a advantage of port forwarding. DAS are also known as virtual machine monitor or VMM, is a software that creates and runs virtual machines. So here the options are hypervisor, simulation, emulation, or cloud controller. So here the keyword is to run a virtual machine. The simulation and emulation not related to virtual machine. Cloud controller also not related to virtual machines. Only the option A is a correct one. So this is the hypervisor. So here we see the two types of hypervisor. Type 1 hypervisor. So that hypervisor the instance runs on top of that hardware. So there is no need of the host OS. And then the type 2 hypervisor, that hypervisor will be installed or deployed on top of the host OS. So that's a difference between type 1 and type 2 hypervisors. So here the first question is, what is 3-2-1 backup rule states? So option 1 is having 3 backup regions with 2 active and 1 offline. And option B is having 3 backup copies, 2 location and 1 personal access. And option C is having 3 copies of data in 2 different media and 1 copy offsite. And option D is having backup every 3 days, 3 months, 2 months different data and 1 day restore. So out of these four, so option D is definitely not the correct one. And option A states a different region and active and offline. That also not correct. And option B says having 3 backup copies, 2 location and 1 person access. That also not irrelevant. So option C is the correct one. So having 3 copies of data, 2 in different media. So either it in tape or disk and 1 copy offsite. So this mechanism is the backup rules is used to protect the data in case of disaster recovery. So option C is correct one. So here the question is, which of the following is not a type of recovery sites? So you all know there is 3 types of recovery sites are there. So here they are given 4 sites. So one of the site is not the correct one. So there is a warm site is correct, cold site and hot site. These three are types of recovery sites. There is nothing called heat sites. So the answer is D. So here if you see these are the disaster recovery site types. The cold site compute site contains only the power and networking capabilities and cooling elements. It won't contains any servers or storage. And warm site it contains the hardware types like tape, disk, servers and switches, but it won't have the data. So data to make it operational. And hot site is a fully backup site. It contains data and servers and storage as well as mirror data. So it's a ready to go site. So if in case of disaster recovery, so the hot site contains the server and the infrastructure to withstand the business functionality. So these are the 3 types of disaster recovery sites. So here the question is, the cold site contains the following. So here the definitely the answer is providing power, networking capabilities and cooling. So the answer is option A. So here the question is, DAS is a comprehensive library of tactics, techniques and procedures used by threat actors to carry out attacks. So here the options are threat modeling. So threat modeling is not the correct one because threat modeling is used in secure software development lifecycle. So here is the threat modeling is used to find the vulnerability in the software design. So we give the data flow diagram. With the data flow diagram, we can the threat modeling tool will give the assessment for that any vulnerabilities or threat in that architecture. So that is not the correct one. The Meteor attack framework, that's a correct one. So because the Meteor attack framework contains a comprehensive library of tactics and techniques and procedures used by the threat actor to carry out the attack. And Metasploit is also not a correct one because Metasploit is used in pen testing. So the option is B. So here the question is, ingress monitoring tool includes firewall, gateways, a remote authentication server, intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system tools or all. So what is ingress? Ingress is a network traffic coming from outside internet to the private network. So firewall and gateway, so filters the external traffic. A remote authentication server that also prevents external traffic, and IDS IPS tool that also prevents external traffic. So the answer is A. Sorry, answer is D. All. Here the question is, DAS is the fundamental technology powering cloud computing. It separates computing environment from physical infrastructure, thereby enabling multiple operating systems and applications to run simultaneously on a single machine. So here the answer is virtualization is the correct one. So containerization and microservice are not the correct one because containerization is a type of virtualization in which the application components are bundled together in a single container image and it will be running as a in an isolated environment. And the microservice is a type of architecture where the software is composed of smaller independent services. So the answer is A is a correct one. Here the question is, DAS is a reference to the mode of operation of software where multiple independent instances of one or multiple applications operate in a shared environment. So here the keyword is shared environment. So public and private and containerization are the correct one. Multi-tenancy is the correct one, because in the multi-tenancy, so the applications, each tenant will share the instance running, and the data is stored in a single shared database. In a single tenancy, so each customer will have his own instance running in this data store, also separate data store. So we go for multi-tenancy to have a cost benefit as well as sharing the resources. So here the question is, which of the following is not passwordless authentication method? So here the software token is also passwordless authentication method, because so here we are not sending the username and password for each and every request. So at the first time we'll get the authentication and we'll get the token, and in the subsequent calls we use the tokens. So that also not the password. Here there is no password is involved. Basic authentication, that's a correct one, because in the basic authentication we use username and password for each and every request. And smart card and cookie also same. There also password is not involved. So the option B is a correct one. So here the question is, cookie is an example of which type of authentication? So what is cookie? So cookie is a browser storage which used to store the session information, client side session information, and which used to send in the each and every request. So this is the type 2 authentication, because the cookie is what something you have. So the correct answer is B. So here the question is the number of key required for symmetric encryption between two parties. So what is symmetric encryption? Symmetric encryption involves using the same key for both encryption and decryption. So for the two parties to do the data transmission with a single key, so the sender and receiver can able to encrypt and decrypt. So the correct answer is option A. So this is a very important question we often get in the CC exam. So here the question is, number of keys required for asymmetric encryption between two parties. So what is asymmetric encryption? So using of two keys for data transmission. So like one key is used for encryption and another key is used for decryption. So here the question says for that two parties to communicate using asymmetric encryption. So what are the number of keys required? So since it is asymmetric encryption, so both parties need to get the key pair. So one public and one private key for both the parties. So the answer is C is the correct one, 4. So here the question is the example of hashing algorithm. MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2, all. So all the three are hashing algorithms. So the answer is D. So here the question is, which of the following is weak hash algorithm and should be avoided? So here the options are MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2 and RSA. So RSA is not the correct one, because RSA is a asymmetric encryption algorithm, and the correct answer is MD5, and we should avoid this hashing algorithm. In fact, in 2012, the Flame spyware infiltrated thousands of computers because of this MD5 hashing collision. So here the question is example of symmetric ciphers: advanced encryption standard, data encryption standard, and international data encryption algorithm. So all of them are example of symmetric ciphers. So the option is D. So here the question is, risk mitigation is either deterrent control, compensation control, recovery control, or preventive control. Option B is the correct one, because it just compensates the risk. So option B is the correct one. And D, A is not the correct one. It is not a deterrent. It won't give any warning, or it's not a recovery control, because it won't do any recovery operations, and it won't prevent risk mitigation. It won't prevent that risk. So option B is the correct one. So here the question is, owners are frequently the creators who determine the classification level unless in dash model. So here the keyword is unless. So out of these four options, where the owners are not allowed to determine the classification level. So the option B is the correct one, mandatory access control. So here the question is, a technique often used to enhance data security but without the use of encryption, like RAID in that data spread across different storage systems. Data controllers, shedding, data dispersion, and data mapping. So out of the four, option C is a correct one. Data disbursement is a mechanism to store the data in different storage at storage provider. We split the data and store in different data storage provider so that to ensure the data security. Here the question is, DAS is a server used to manage access to an internal or private network from an external network. So bastion host, endpoint, firewall, and gateway. So out of four, the bastion host is the correct one. So because the bastion host is used to connect to the internal private network from the external network, and we can access the private network resources. So from the outsiders can't able to directly access the private network resources. So this provide the extra layer of data security as well as the protection of that internal private network. So here if we see this is a typical VPC in the AWS VPC, we have Linux instance inside the private subnet, and if you want to access, external users want to access that Linux instance through the bastion host. Bastion host is a server, so the user can RDP to the bastion host, and from the bastion host we have provided the access to the internal private subnet. So since it has that say data security in place with the bastion host, the external users can't able to directly access the internal private subnet resources. And the bastion host has an instance profile set so that it has the necessary permission sets to access the private network, private subnet resources. So here the question is, DAS is a network node which used in telecommunication that connects two networks with different transmission protocol together. So here the keyword is a different transmission protocol. A router, firewall, gateway, and switch. A router, firewall, and switch. That's not the correct one because router is to connect to networks. It not do the data transmission. It won't do the data translation. And firewall also not the correct one. The correct answer is gateway. So gateway do the data transmission across two different networks. So here the question is, does identify specific events or threads and carries out automated responses based on predefined workflows? SIM, SOAR, firewall, and all. So the option B is the correct one. Because so the security orchestration automation response tool, it combines the data collection, thread and vulnerability management, incident response, and security automation. But what is SIM? SIM is security and information and event management. It just does the detect thread, compliance and security incident management through a collection of analysis. It won't do that automated responses. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Please comment for more topics. If you like the videos, please share with your friends, and best wishes for your exam.